I was born into a pretty normal family. I grew up a normal child. When I was 5 years old, my parents got divorced. And so when all that happened, I felt abandonment, I felt hurt, I felt pain, and I really didn't know how to deal with my emotions as a young child. And so when I started experimenting with drugs, I began to get relief. I began to feel like that I had a purpose, and that may sound strange to somebody that's normal, but it seemed like it was filling all those voids that I had not learned how to deal with previously in my life. In my 4th year of college, before I graduated, was when my addiction got really bad. I was on taking Roxy's, any kind of pain pill I could get a hold of. I was speedballing with nerve pills, and I was just trying to medicate to fix how I felt. And I got to this point where I didn't want to be on drugs anymore. I didn't want to feel the way that I felt, but I didn't know how to stop because I was already chemically dependent. I went to treatment the first time for 30 days. And I came back and I stayed clean for 4 months, but that still wasn't long enough for me to learn the tools that I needed to continue not being on drugs. And so I relapsed, and when I relapsed, my addiction got even worse. I started taking more doses. I started selling everything that I had that was materialistic that I could get money for. I got on the needle, and my whole life changed. It just seemed like depression just came over me, and I was close to death. And I can remember the last night that I used a needle, and I prayed and I said, God, please just take my life from me. Please just kill me, because I can't do this anymore. I can't live this way anymore. I just had this realizing moment that I had to change my life, that I had to become who I needed to be. And for that split second, it had to have been God that gave me that faith that I could do it. I'm almost 3 years clean today, and I can say that it's been a very hard journey. Next week, I'm getting married, and I start a new state job, and I've got a home now, and I've got a chance at a future, and I wouldn't have had any of that unless somebody like this program would have reached out and helped me. And I think that's the most important thing, is that's what PIER is about. It's about bringing people out of what they're in and teaching them how to live again. It's going to be a long, hard journey, but it's going to be worth it, and we're willing to be that support, and we're willing to be those people that stand behind you and say, yes, you can do it. Yes, you can be who you're going to be, and yes, you can come out of it. Because if I can, anybody can. And if I can leave this conversation with anything, it's that if you don't have hope today, you can borrow mine.
My first encounter with drugs was when I was 6 years old. I was smoking pot. Shortly after that is when I started experiencing some sexual abuse, rape from very close family members. And I didn't understand. I come from a very abusive family. Both of my parents were in and out of drugs. My dad was always at the bars hanging out. There was always cussing, fighting. My dad was always abusive to my mom, always beating her. When I was 6, after all the pot smoking and all that stuff, after I was sick, or when I was 6, my dad came into our home and tried killing my mom. Instead, he killed my mom's boyfriend. He went upstairs to try to kill my mom, and the boyfriend was standing at the top of the stairs, and he shot him. And it was a very traumatic experience as a child. When I was 10, my mother had passed away, and I remember my aunt coming to get me from school, and she told me that my mom had passed away, and I just had no emotions whatsoever. Shortly after that's when my dad was released from prison, and I went to go live with him. He hadn't changed any. It's when he started sexually abusing me. It was, that's when I decided that I couldn't live in that environment either, so I ran away from home. And I had no idea where I was even going. And that's when I started experiencing the alcohol and I was going to bars when I was 14 years old. And I just kept going from one relationship to another, thinking that that's where I was going to find my happiness at. And I was just wanting to be accepted and loved by a man, because I never had that father experience that any girl would ever want or ever hope for. And I'd gotten with my third husband, and him and I had a son together, and the pregnancy wasn't a normal pregnancy, and I knew that it wasn't a normal pregnancy because the way I felt, it wasn't like my other pregnancies that I had. 2 months old, and we woke up and found our son dead in his bassinet. And that's when my addiction had really struck. I did not want to cope with those emotions. I was getting into the pain pills, and I was drinking, I was partying, and eventually that's when I had lost custody of my son. And that's when I knew. I'd went to court and I was fighting for my kid, but I couldn't understand that I had to quit doing the drugs. And I'll never forget the day that my lawyer looked at me and he said, if you don't stop doing this, you're never going to see your son again. And that's when it hit home with me. I thought, oh man, I've got to stop doing this. And I had reached out to so many different organizations that I'd heard about. And I was calling them saying, do you have a bed available? You know, how much money is this going to cost? And I just didn't have the funds for it because I was a single mom and I had kids that I was trying to raise and take care of. And I wanted the help so bad and wanted people to really relate to and understand what I was going through, and I couldn't. And that's the reason why I have a lot of hope for this program, that I would love to see this program be successful in this area. I see a lot of women in and out of addiction that are just, you can tell that they're really wanting the help, and just like, you know, I was, they don't have the funds. They don't have people there to help them. And I want to see this program be successful. I really believe that the PIER program will and can change lives. There is hope, and I'm living proof that there is hope for others out there in active addiction.
When I was 3 or 4 years old, one of the very first memories that I have, there was a boy that lived in our neighborhood, and my brother was playing basketball across the street. And I remember he left me and one of my friends in the house, and we were playing house upstairs in the bedroom, and the boy came up there and asked us if he could play house with us and that he would show us how to play house. So to make a long story short, I watched him rape the little girl, and then he raped me, and my brother came home, and I had spilled pizza on the new carpet in the basement, and he told me that if I told Mom and Dad, he would tell them that I had spilled the pizza and ruined the carpet. And so I just kept my mouth shut and went on and blocked it out for years. I mean, I really didn't remember it. I don't really know when I decided or what made me decide that drugs were for me. I just know that I always hang out with older kids, and the kids that I hung out with, they did drugs and they had sex, and I wanted to fit in. You know, I wanted to be like everybody else. I started seeing an older guy. I was like 13 and he was like 24, and he was shooting up Oxycontin, and I went from smoking pot one time to shooting up Oxycontin. And one night we were at the park and we had been to a party, and he's like, you know, you like getting high, let me show you how to get really high. And I was like, well, I really didn't like getting high off a pot, you know, so I'm not really interested in that. And he's like, oh no, this is way better. And so he shot me up for the first time, and I instantly fell in love. I mean, it was like this was the piece missing from my whole life. It took away all the pain. It took away what fear I did have, I mean, I was just 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And so that's how my addiction began. He actually worked out of town, and every morning he would tape my drugs underneath of the mailbox with a fresh needle, and I would shoot myself up before I went to school. In the process of that, I was still playing sports, and I hurt my knee really bad. And when I hurt my knee, they prescribed me Percocets, and I started taking those, and they gave them to me for quite some time for the knee injury, and I could play ball so much better, I could study so much better. It just made everything in my life so much better. And on top of that, everybody wanted to hang out with me because I had these pills, you know. I started running away from home, lying, stealing, anything I could do to get the money because the doctor had cut me off of my prescriptions, so I had to get them on the street because by this time I was addicted, even though I didn't realize it. And so I woke up one day and I was at my godmother's house, and they said, you can either pick a rehab or we'll pick one for you. I signed the first paper on the top of the stack, and I went to my first treatment center, and I worked the program, and I came home, and I was clean for 2 or 3 years. Met a guy that was just Mr. Amazing, never did drugs in his life. He was in the military. He, just swept me off my feet. I started going to college, started doing really good, and then me and his relationship just took a turn for the worse. I continued to spiral slowly, out of control. It took about 3 years, I think, for me to land into my next rehab, which was by my mother arresting me and putting me in jail. And I went to the second rehab that I went to was a secular program, and it was the Hope Center, and I hated it. And I got high, and I had to start over, and I fought tooth and nail and didn't want to be there, and didn't think I had a disease or a problem or that anything was wrong with me. Actually, I thought everybody there was crazy. And then finally one day, it clicked that I had a problem. I was the problem. And it wasn't going to change until I changed me. So I started working the program. I stayed there. I became a peer mentor. I worked with the girls, and I loved it. And I was sober for a year. 6 months after getting out of treatment, I checked myself back in to the Hope Center. I was the first peer mentor that had worked there and graduated the program to come back within 6 months of being out of treatment. I stayed for a week, and I left and gave my bed to my sister because she was in jail waiting for treatment, and they couldn't treat us both at the same time. And since I had already been through treatment and knew what to do, I left. I came home, I struggled, I tried Suboxone, I tried 2 or 3 different, methods, going to meetings, going to church, doing just whatever I could to try to quit. And I met my husband, and he was clean and sober at the time. He wasn't a drug addict, and we got married, and I got pregnant. And I thought that my addiction was over. I thought my child would never see me high or ever have to go through any of the things I had to go through. But after I had him, of course, I had him natural. I was so proud of myself because I didn't have to have any pain medication during the delivery. I didn't have any pain medication coming home. But unfortunately, shortly after getting home, I relapsed. And my son's a year old now, and today I have 5 days clean. Through all of this, realizing that treatment, as much treatment as I've had, you'd think it would work. You'd think I wouldn't have to keep going down and coming back up, that I'd get it. You'd think a few trips to jail and all that, I'd be done. You think having a little boy looking in your eyes and you being the person responsible for his life, that would be enough, but sadly it's not. And God woke me up in the middle of the night. I had a dream that He showed me a center that would fill the gaps of treatment, of church. It would fill the gaps for people like me, where we've tried everything, and we don't know what else to do or where else to turn, and we need some community support. So God gave me a vision of a place, a resource center, a place where people can come if they don't know what to do, if they've tried everything and everybody's turned their back on them. It's Operation PIER. He showed me a dream of a beach, of me standing on a beach, and he told me if I would walk out onto the pier and just take his hand, he would take me to the other side. And that's what I've been trying to do. And hopefully, this can help someone. If it touches one person's life, that's all I ask. I don't know who's seeing this or who's going to watch this or what, but all I know is that there is hope. There are people out there that feel the same way that you do, that know the loneliness and the isolation and the anger and the frustration that comes with trying to stay clean and sober and make the right decisions and really not knowing how to or where to go or who to turn to. And I would love for there to be a place to fill that gap. Because when I came out of treatment, I was just thrown into the wolves. And there needs to be a place to help people transition back into their families, back into their life. Not just, okay, you went to rehab, now here you go home, go to your meetings and you'll be okay. And so that's what I hope that we can establish here. I hope that we can have a place where single mothers can come and help get their kids back. A place where you can come, and if treatment didn't work for you and church is not working for you, we can find something that will work for you.
Hello, my name is Pamela Hammons, and I'm here today at Pineville, Kentucky with Restoring the Visions Ministry, Operation PIER. And I'm here to talk to you about a serious problem called addiction. When both of my girls were on drugs, there was an individual that helped me through that period of time. His son was on drugs really bad. And we were trying to help these kids. We would go out at night and rescue them, go get them at times and do things. And so we tracked them down, and we did everything that we possibly could to try to save their lives. And so we started talking about Operation PIER and getting some funding to help some of these kids. And during that period of time, he helped me to save my daughter's lives, but he lost his own son. And so I continued to pick up the pieces for Operation PIER because I realized that every life was important, and I just wanted to give back, something to the community and to the people, because they really don't understand it. It's like one of those storms that you just don't understand until you've been through it. And I feel like that we have made it through, and we do have a testimony. And today I'm thankful. I'm thankful that I have both of my children with me, and they're important to me. And I want them to know that they're important and that they have a future. I feel like that drugs changes a child's identity, and today I don't want any child's identity changed because of drugs and alcohol. And so that's why I'm here today. I'm here today to ask you for your help. I'm here to ask you for your support, because it's going to take you, and it's going to take your help, not just financially, but to labor with us. It's going to take a community of people to help these kids. And so that's what Operation PIER is all about. It's about bringing a community of people together to bring the resources that we need to help these kids to get from point A to point B and point C to point D until they can now become productive citizens and productive in life. We can't do this without you. We need your help. We need your support. We've got, you know, Bell County alone is #1 in drug overdose. So we need your help and we need your support, not just financially, but we need you to come alongside of us, and we need for you to be that mentor and be that business person that would be willing to come in and help these kids get their lives back on track. So I'm coming to you today to ask you to help us to bring these kids out of the chaos and out of the confusion that they've been into. Thank you.